Hello, and welcome to the 32nd Annual James V. Mongiardo Public Speaking Competition, sponsored by the Mongiardo family. It's a little bit different being on this side of the podium on a Tuesday at convocation for me, but I'm excited to be here today and excited to welcome our speakers. I'm Dr. Sarah Pitts, the organizer, and I can guarantee you that I have never, in my 5 years of doing this, I've never been happier to be the organizer and not a judge this year. But a great big special thank you to our judges, Mrs. Emily Reagan, Mr. Josh Baker, and Mrs. Mary Turner. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm also really glad that we have such a good turnout today, and so glad that you all have decided to come out and support your friends and your classmates and your peers. These speakers have worked diligently on speeches that define and illustrate this year's theme of servant leadership. They were each asked, what does servant leadership mean to you? And today's speeches are diverse, impersonal, in their understanding and their experiences with servant leadership. And today, more than any other day, I know that you will leave inspired and uplifted. So today's speakers are Andrew Deskins, Ashley Hope Holbrook, Leah Jonathan, Micah Turner, Hadley Kraft, and Justin Witt. Help me in welcoming our first speaker to the stage.
Good afternoon. My name is Andrew Deskins. I'm a freshman here. The title of my speech is called The Jesus Way. And Thursday night we had a practice, and Justin Witt got up here and said, the title of my speech is, I won't spoil it. And I was like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? But I did make a title. And so it's called The Jesus Way, and it's also why I wore my Christian tie. You cannot have servant leadership without Jesus. There's just no way you can. In the Bible, the book of Mark, chapter 10, verse 43 says, but it shall not be so among you, but whoever desires to be great among you shall be your servant. I had always grown up in this teaching, but I found the true meaning of the verse time and time again while on various mission trips I've been a part of across the country, from Jacksonville, Florida to Kansas City, Kansas. And then in these trips, we do such great things because we get to show people the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I contribute the servant leader qualities I have today to mission trips. But the night of February 15th, not even a month ago, waters rose in my neighborhood street. At 11 o'clock, it was at my heels. At 11:20, it was above my knees. Our whole neighborhood had to evacuate, not knowing the fate of our homes. That next day, my basement was completely flooded with everything in it destroyed, while my garage and living room got hit hard as well. And while we were 2 inches from losing everything, 4 of our neighbors, unfortunately, were not so lucky. As the time looked dark and gloomy, team after team of the very people I have traveled the country serving with came to relieve and clean my home. Now, I've been in various projects, but it's different when it's your home. And you're the one being served. And so even with all the trips and flood reliefs I've worked, perhaps the greatest moment I've seen servant leadership demonstrated in my life is when I was the one being served, because at that time, the leaders in the city and county were irrelevant trying to figure things out. The leadership that truly helped my family when we needed it the most were the people serving alongside me, and whether they were 7 years old or 70. I will always remember when they sacrificed their week of work and their week of school in order to serve my family and therefore led us to hope. That, my friends, is servant leadership. A study by Emlon Business School showed a nearly 55% increase of employee morale when their employer conducted acts of this servant leadership. That's interesting. Statistics don't lie, folks, but statistics are not the only evidence we see. All across the New Testament, Jesus displayed this servant leadership model to his disciples, and he told Andrew and Peter by the sea, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I need no statistics. If Christ tells me that the greatest way to lead is through service, then that's how I'm going to lead. Because it's how he led, humbling himself to die on a tree to bring salvation to us all. And when he resurrected, he told us to go to all the world and to spread this servant leadership model. Go serve others in my name and lead them to me. We see that some of the greatest leaders in our history displayed servant leadership. and walked the Jesus way, because they knew that in order to truly lead in a way people will want to follow, you must humble yourself, as Christ did, to serve other people's needs above your own. And Jesus served to the point of serving, to washing the disciples' feet. And yet there's another person who said yes to walk the Jesus way. Alice Geddes Lloyd served in a little shack in the hills of Knott County, Kentucky, and led the way to bring about educational opportunity to the young men and women in the heart of Appalachia. And her Purpose Road philosophy laid the pillars of the institution of which we stand. You know, I read the Purpose Road philosophy when I was on tour here, and I thought, what an awesome way to encourage young people. But I wonder if it could work for me. But as my freshman year has gone on, I have seen the Purpose Road philosophy really play out in my life. You see, Alice Lloyd College was never expected to thrive into excellence. It was a vision and idea that Alice Lloyd and June Buchanan whispered. It was an experiment to see if education really could be brought to the hillbillies. Every day they worked and taught students to buy into this vision by whispering this vision to them along with hours on their knees in prayer. So before anything official was established, they had the vision of what their potential could be. And you know what? That vision of what could be came to fruition that carries on today. And that's helped me because sometimes I lay in my room and I fight the battles of doubt and insecurity about my future. And when I face these battles, I do not look at who Andrew Deskins is now. I look at who Andrew Deskins could be, always setting higher expectations of myself and goals. And with this in mind, it has changed how I serve my peers in the classroom as well as in ministry. I see not who the person is or their mistakes. I see the leader they could be. And that is how the Purpose Road philosophy of servant leadership has helped shape my ideas of servant leadership. And I thank Alice Lloyd College for that. But I also thank this college for giving me the encouragement and tools necessary to work at Crossings Church Camp this summer. And so many people work at that camp to grow their faith. I admire that. But I'm working there to truly show these kids that they can be a servant leader. Because me personally, I grew up, my mother was an alcoholic. And so my childhood was full of disappointment after disappointment. There's a lot of Christmases that I did not look forward to. And so just to tell those kids that if I made it, if I can be a servant leader to try my best, you can too. And that is truly where my heart is this summer. To teach those kids, no matter how much I have to give up or no matter how hard it gets, to teach them how to walk the Jesus way. And even in this age of social media and change, the everlasting relevance of the Purpose Road philosophy lives on in each and every student, faculty, and staff in this valley. Many say there is no hope for this generation. They are lost. And they are lost because they have no leaders. They just don't know where to look. As I look down Purpose Road and see students walking to class with zero student debt weighing down their pockets due to generous donors who see their potential, as I see the words of June Buchanan inscribed across this beautiful campus, as I see the history of this college 100 years ago and look upon what it is today, I see that the leaders are here in Pippa-Passes, Kentucky. And I tell you today, not from behind this podium, but as one of you all, that you, yes, you can be a leader through your service. And that is the beauty of it, is that anyone can be. The leaders are here because the heart to serve is here. The very backbone of Alice Lloyd College is the Purpose Road philosophy. And at the very heart of this philosophy is servant leadership in its definition. With servant leadership in mind, I believe that Alice Lloyd will train up leaders that serve for generations to come to be a light into their world, a light into their country, a light into Kentucky, a light into their neighbors, a light into the mountains, as we continue to walk the Jesus way in our East Kentucky home. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Ashley Holbrook. I am a freshman here, and the title of my speech today is going to be called Empathy in a Dark World. And before I get started, I would first like to thank the Mongiardo Foundation and their family for this incredible opportunity and their support to Alice Lloyd College. And to the faculty, staff, my fellow peers, and all of those who have a heart to serve, thank you for being here. The title of servant leadership was coined and created by Robert K. Greenleaf in the 1970s, and according to Spalding University research, is the idea that individual growth drives collective success. The ethics of servant leadership prioritizes other people's needs over oneself or potential profits. Simply put, servant leadership is to strip ourselves from greed, envy, our desire to be in control, and the wants of our flesh. We must be willing to take everything we are and everything we have and use it to cultivate a change in our workforce, our communities, our schools, and ultimately, the world. The heart of servant leadership is built on empathy. We must constantly strive to understand and observe the world around us. Empathy starts with simply listening and working to understand the innermost parts of people and how important they truly are to our ever-changing society and to the growth of ourselves. Empathy is seeing one of your peers struggling in class to gain a concept that may appear so easy to you and others, and you choose to review your notes with them. I remember a time when a classmate of mine was struggling to write a piece for a program that we both so desperately wanted to get into. I sat down with her, providing revisions to help, and well, she ended up getting accepted and I didn't. That moment taught me that leadership isn't about being the greatest. It's about lifting others up. Empathy is picking up on the pain and struggles a friend may be facing and choosing to stay by their side so that they feel a little less alone. Empathy can be smiling at a complete stranger passing by you on the street who just looks like they need a little joy, a little acknowledgement. Our world is oftentimes a dark and lonely place, waiting to trap its next innocent victim in its web of destruction. I believe that we forget how important empathy really is sometimes, especially when it comes to servant leadership. I always believed growing up that I was too sensitive, that I needed to be a little tougher, a little more rough around the edges, but that isn't me, and it never will be. I thought that being a leader meant you had to be loud and demanding and bossy, but that is so far from the truth. The great leaders are the ones who approach everyone they meet with unconditional kindness, the ones who use their voices to advocate for others, even when there is nothing to be personally gained. And the ones who go where God and their hearts lead them, they have a quiet strength to them that others rarely ever see. They don't yell. They don't belittle. They stand firm in their morals and values and strive to make sure that no one gets left behind. They use their words to inspire and cultivate innovators, researchers, doctors. From the beginning of time, history has provided us with true examples of servant leaders, including Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, Abraham Lincoln. But I think the best example of servant leadership is the gift that God gave us all, Jesus Christ. He died on the cross and washed us from our sins so that maybe we could strive to be even just a little bit more like him. And then you have June Buchanan and Alice. They went where God led them. They believed in their purpose. They believed in their spirit. And they gave us the chance to not only receive higher education, but to come back and pour into this community that stands by us and will fight for us. May we go into the world using that empathy and the foundation of servant leadership to give back to others. I pray that we lead as true examples of kindness, that we keep our hearts full of compassion. And most of all, I don't think that servant leadership is something that can really be taught. I think it's something that we feel. I think it's engraved in our souls, and it just takes a little bit of effort and discipline to display to the world. I feel extremely lucky and grateful right now to be on this stage and having my voice be heard. But I know that without this college, without all the people who have gone before us and paved the way for us with sacrifices and empathy and understanding and love, I wouldn't be here on this stage today. And for any of those who have ever been labeled as too sensitive, like I have been, your emotions and your kind-hearted spirit will never make you a bad leader. It will make you a world changer. You've got a powerful gift, so use it. Never let your heart grow cold. And in everything, believe in yourself and believe in servant leadership and the power that we have been given. Mark chapter 10, verses 44 through 45 says, "And whoever wants to be first must be a slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Leah Jonathan, and the type of leadership that servant leadership is equates to lifestyle leadership. It is a humble type that leads through character and by example. It requires people who are diligent and steadfast in their values, who live for the people, not by the people. What does it mean to be a servant and a leader at the same time? It's all about values and being a proper representation of those values. Not only that, but the values you choose to have to be so worthwhile that others are influenced to adopt them, or at least inspired to consider living an unselfish lifestyle because they see from your example how it benefits others and one's own spirit. Following the Purpose Road philosophy, it starts with your conscience. Thought, foresight, and willpower are words used to elaborate on conscience. To me, this means how you think, how you see the future, and your level of devotion. The reply to this depends on your values and decision to serve others or yourself. What does it mean to serve? Putting yourself aside and helping others when it does not benefit you or when you could easily look the other way. It means being there to lift others up when they need it and even when they don't. Servantship, when it is a choice, should come out of love with no expectation. It is humble, it will be seen, so you don't have to seek for it to be seen, but rather to have an influence on others by being an example. Ye are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:14. We start to see how a servant can be a natural leader. One of the, if not the greatest leader, Jesus Christ, led with all humility. He had influence and he knew what he stood on, but he also, Philippians 2:7, made himself of no reputation and took upon him the form of a servant. That means he did not seek to please man, and he did not have a face he had to put on and uphold, but his character and actions were so genuine and solid that it spoke for itself. This lines up with another one of our pillars in the Purpose Road philosophy, duty, which is elaborated as self-development. This part means turning your conscience into practice and making your values true to you. In other words, turning your ideals into your character. Servitude has to flow out genuinely, or at least come from intentions to become genuine. Sometimes it is hard to put yourself aside and do things for others when it seems to have no benefit to you. Why would I do that? I don't have to. I gain nothing. Those are all valid thoughts, And if you think like that, it does not mean that you cannot be genuine. You can make a conscious decision to act in rebellion to your current way of thinking. You can actively make an effort to become more of a servant. Even if you don't genuinely want to do the things, you can genuinely want to make a change in yourself. You are allowed to do that. Eventually, your thoughts will align with your actions and you will become a genuine servant. And a genuine servant makes for a worthy leader. The last component of the Purpose Road philosophy that I want to encompass is action. This goes beyond just doing, but to truly take action as a servant leader is to let the path you take and your goals for the future align with your values. This is how you truly act on servant leadership, because your life's purpose will actively choose to serve others, and that will have an influence greater than selfish leadership. Soldiers, for example, they serve the country, and because of that, they are seen as leaders and protectors. Even the lowest class of them are respected because their servantship for our larger whole as a country. We have seen that servant leaders have been immensely influential in the past. The baby boom generation, for example. After Russia launched the first satellite into space, people had a sense of development for America. And that's when the Industrial Revolution really took off. Workers thought about how they can serve their company and not how they could do less work for more money. People leading selfish lives is practical, but in a workplace, for example, it results in the bare minimum and functionality of the company. In society, the ones who have movement upwards tend to gain the spotlight and are leaders. If people have a servant mindset and do their best for the company, then it can go beyond functioning into improving and developing. Then that takes the whole company up and leads them onto the future. Our daily lives, values, and habits are constantly being influenced by trends and agendas. We have seen how much influence it can have on our mindset as a country and how we view things and even the actions we take. If the agendas put out through our actions are servant-like, then there would be an impact in society. Living a life of servitude puts out the servantship agenda and combats the influence of the selfish lifestyle through leading by example. Leadership is to have an impact beyond oneself. Contrary to the self-serving rhetoric, we don't just live to survive and go on vacation once in a while. There's more meaning to our existence than struggle and temporary bliss. Leadership does not have to be on a grand scale. No matter what, even if we don't intend to, our lives and interactions with people have an impact and an effect on society. It is impossible not to. It is up to us how we want to shape that impact. Thank you.
Welcome everyone to John Mills Comedy Show. My bad, wrong speech. Good afternoon. My name is Micah Turner and I'll be presenting my speech titled Servant to the Purpose Road. June Buchanan once said, "Miss Lloyd knew, and I knew it too, that Almighty God would continue to send friends who would keep this miracle alive." Alice Lloyd College was not your typical fairy tale story, but rather humble beginnings founded by a heaven-sent vision and a foreigner who would bring learning to the children. 2 lives dedicated to bringing education to the folks of the Appalachian region. Is there anything more noble? Is there any more humble of a cause? When I think of a servant leader, there are 3 people who come to mind. Miss Alice Geddes Lloyd arrived in Knott County in 1915, uprooting her entire life for the sake of her family. Yet when she got here, there is no question that it was not at all like Boston. It wasn't until Abisha Johnson came to Miss Lloyd with a God-sent vision that she truly accepted her calling to a life of servant leadership. What many rarely recognize is that once she arrived in Pippa Pass,
that throughout the remainder of her life, she left campus less than a dozen times. With her isolation to Caney Creek and limited resources and funding on hand, Alice would often draft dozens upon dozens of letters, each of which that she would send to any acquaintance that she had made. From little old Pippa Passes, letters went from her neighbors in Boston to the President of the United States. One such letter made its way to Wellesley College in Massachusetts, where Miss Lloyd's war cry won the heart of another one of our servant leaders. Miss June Buchanan wrote in a letter received by Alice that someday she was coming to see the school that the girls had been telling her so much about, in which Alice responded, "Oh, do come. We would be very happy to have a June Buchanan here." June would visit Pippa Passes for the first time in 1919, despite the wishes of her father. In the week's time she was given, she bought into the burning vision of Alice Lloyd about an institution that would shape the future of Appalachia. June stayed an additional 2 weeks beyond the allotted time frame given to her by her parents and would return again that summer. In their efforts, the servant leadership that they embodied was inspired by the ultimate servant leader. In the 10th chapter of the book of Mark, Jesus says, "Ye know that they which are accounted to rule over the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and their great ones exercise authority upon them. But so shall it not be among you, but whosoever will be great among you shall be the servant of all." But then it says, "For even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life a ransom for many." Alice and June both embodied their purpose road philosophy, placing God at the center of their vision and entrusting him to carve the path in which they were to walk. Guided by the ultimate servant leader, who gave his very life to serve the people he came to serve, both Alice and June set forth to build upon their vision, dedicating a life of service to a needy cause. For nearly half a century, they both labored through trials and conflicts that threatened to eradicate that vision. The very campus that we stand upon was built by the servant leaders who came before us, and thus I make my point. When I first visited campus in the early part of 2023, I feel that I encountered the same sensation that June experienced. There was a draw of sorts to this miracle of Caney Creek. Since becoming a student at Alice Lloyd College, I've seen the vision and legacy of Alice and June instilled into each and every student. From the initial stage of freshman orientation even, the morals and values that this college represents have been established proudly. Our founders firmly believed in their cause and made the purpose road philosophy a reality. 2 years later, as I walk this campus every day, I see servant leadership embodied in our legacy and in our students. Whether it's a community service project or a mission trip to Guatemala, time and time again, the vision that was established over a century ago is still alive and well. Servant leadership is embodied in those who came before us. June didn't just arrive and begin barking orders. From the first week she was here, she was in a classroom doing what she could to educate the children for a cause. That's the difference between a boss and a leader. Leaders lead. I've heard stories of how President Stepp was in the creeks, removing debris alongside other volunteers in the aftermath of the flood of 2022. Once again, I say that true leaders lead, true servers serve. Seeing these arts represented so well, it has not only awestruck me, but inspired me to do the same. Just as June did, I also firmly believe in the vision of Alice Lloyd. It's the servant leaders of our region that continue to enlighten and help our people. It's the servant leaders of our nation that continue to provide help to the world. I believe that if I rise to the cause and do my part as a servant leader, that maybe my actions can inspire someone else to do the same. This Alice effect is found in the very morals of the Purpose Road philosophy, leading those who choose to expand beyond what June called the realm of thinghood, the opportunity to find their purpose and become true servant leaders. Over a century later, Alice Lloyd College continues the cry for leadership and the morals that they instill upon each and every student who walks the Purpose Road. The dream of our founders lives on because we build upon it. This is their dream, and it's our servant leaders who have made that a reality. In a likewise manner, it doesn't stop here. Should our servant leadership cease, then that dream dies with it. Yet as long as our servant leaders of not only Pippa Passes, but as far as that of our nation and our world continue to rise to the cause that those dreams of those two foreigners can live on. I leave you with this poem found amidst Robert W. Sloan's book titled Boston's Gift to Caney Creek. It reads, "Rest against our shoulders for a little while," said the Caney Creek Community Center, to the souls with veils across their faces, and they rested. Now lift your heads. And the youth lost in the shadows of darkness lifted their heads. And with the veils slipped from their faces and strengthened, they resumed their journey. God bless y'all, and God bless Alice Lloyd College.
Hi, I'm Hadley Kraft. Before I start, I just want to say I dedicate these words to my dad. Okay. I'll share a little tidbit about me. It's something that my friends already are aware of. I think absolutely nothing through. I have no thought process for some of the things that I do. When I was in high school, I said the prayer at graduation because somebody asked me. Instead of wanting to be a cheerleader, I decided I would try to be the mascot. That lasted a couple months. And I threw myself into an internship I knew absolutely nothing about. And I still don't know it, but I do it. And it was all because it was available. When Dr. Pitts brought up the speech contest, it was something I'd wanted to do since I was a freshman. But I said, if I waited till my senior year, I'd never have to see you guys again after this. So I'm less embarrassed. When the topic was announced about servant leadership, I spent the first 2 weeks laying there when I got back from my internship. And the only topic I kept coming back to was Jesus, because my morals drive everything that I do in my life. I don't just make it a routine to go to church. My faith is my moral compass that directs all my paths and all my decisions. So servant leadership to me is not something you just talk about, but it's something you live by. It cannot be found in a dictionary. It cannot be found by whispering to your friend about it, or it's not plastered inside the classrooms we find around us. It isn't a tangible object that I can buy. Servant leadership to me is simply people. It is my dad who has taught me compassion, always putting others above himself. My mom who taught me work ethic. My grandparents who have humbly served the Lord, praying on my behalf. It's my siblings who have encouraged me daily to follow the stars and to reach for the promises that I have made both to me and them. It's the people I've met on this journey. It's my friends who have made me enjoy the small moments in life and have battled out the hard ones with me. It's my bosses who have given me a duty and a passion and have honed my skills. It's my professors who instill within me the passion, the need, and the want for education. They knew I could do great things even when I did not believe in myself. It's my Savior who has gave his life for me, and it's Alice Lloyd that has given me the opportunity to grow, to teach the people I love, and to afford the education my parents couldn't. You're probably wondering why I'm talking about following my thoughts on a whim. You're probably like, who cares? Well, to me, those thoughts are the unachieved dreams of my parents. My dad had to quit the 8th grade to work on his family's farm. He wasn't given the chance for education. My dad can read basic sentences. He cannot even read the Bible, so that's something me and my sisters have to tell those experiences to him. My dad tirelessly provided not just for my mom, but for his whole family as well. My dad has handed out more money on random roads to random people than I will ever be able to count on my hands. And even when we were struggling, my dad made it a priority to give back to the people with his time, his money, and his resources. My parents are the product of their parents. My dad's family told him he would never amount to anything. They said he would live a deadbeat life and be worthless. To be my dad's daughter is a privilege, and to be my mom's daughter is a privilege. My dad might not have wealth, he might not have an education, and he might not be successful in what the world determines success. But my dad is the leader I strive to be. He is the character and the grace and the mercy I want to have and show. I came to college because my dad and mom didn't get the chance to. I volunteer for presentations and classroom engagement because I wonder if my dad would have liked to have done that. I read as many books as possible because my dad will never have the pleasure of reading a book for fun, of discovering a world within our imagination awaiting inside the chapters. I take all these opportunities because I have people who will never get the opportunities. So it cannot be found on the walls of a classroom, but in the mind. It cannot be found by word of mouth because it is found in the soul. and it cannot be found in a book, but it is found in the heart. It's the people who continuously put others above themselves. It's a gentle word, a kind whisper, and a happy hand, and it's the millions of initiated drives for people's benefit. And in my community, it's you all. It doesn't mean going to a third world country every month. It's serving in our own backyards and our own communities. I tell my dad every day that I'm proud of him and the life he is living. If he hadn't made the sacrifices he had to make, I would not be here at all. And I go home every weekend because I cannot ever imagine going home one weekend and my dad not being there. When I look at my dad, I see a child who has grew up too fast and never got to do the things that we take for granted. It's my mom who comes home exhausted, worn down and out of it, that I can get out and work after school because I know the importance of hard work. When she was younger, she was married to a man before my dad that made her walk to work. My mom walked through the blazing sun, the smothering rain, and the blistering snow and never once complained. And when I look at my mom, I see someone who has given everything she has for the people she loves because not everyone loved her back. And I wouldn't have known any of this if it weren't through their actions. Servant leadership to me is Jesus, who knew going to die on Calvary might mean no one follow him or love him, but he did it regardless because of us. It's knowing that even if one person in the world would have failed to sin, he still would have died for our pardon. To me, servant leadership is the generations of people before me who will influence the generations of people after me. I never thought in the slightest I could ever fathom coming to college, much less getting ready to graduate. Every year I would pray, Lord, help me be able to afford to go another year. And in 2 months, I'll have my diploma, and in 5, I'll hopefully be starting grad school. My Jesus is the reason I get up in the morning, and to him I owe everything in my life. But he gave me 2 great examples of servant leaders and servant hearts, and I can never repay him for that. And I will spend this lifetime making sure my parents are taken care of and doing the things they can now while I continue to do the things that they never will get to do. And I hope that my dad is someone who will be remembered by his community as a servant leader, and my mom someone who put her best foot first no matter what. Seeing my dad now, I hope I get many more moments with him, but I know time is winding down, and that's why I'm up here, because I promised him I would make something out of myself, and I want him to see me do it. If you were to ever walk to my parents' room and look at my dad's side of the bed, the walls are covered with pictures of me and my 5 sisters, our awards, our accomplishments, and our certificates. When I win something, I immediately call my dad and I tell him to make a place and I have a gift for him. Because those accomplishments are not just mine, but they are his and mom's because of their sacrifices. And my tiny awards do nothing to repay for the life they have given me and repay Jesus for my blessings, but I hope to be a person who encourages them and makes them proud. Aside from Jesus, I hope they look at me and they see a servant heart. I will end with this. The most impactful saying I've ever read is from Jesus. And it sums up what a servant to me is to be. And it says, I have come not to be served, but to serve. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Don't worry, I am the last one. Hi, my name is Justin Witt. I'm a senior, and the title of this piece, which was improv because I hadn't read it yet when you asked me, is titled Growing Pains. Dwight Eisenhower once said, "You do not lead by hitting people over the head. That's assault." I just want to check in with everyone in the audience. How are we all feeling? I'm sure you are more than happy spending your day listening to the insightful thoughts of your fellow classmates. And me. I've been competing in the Mongiardo Speech Competition for the past 3 years. And I'm not gonna lie, servant leadership might have been the single hardest subject ever to write about. In fact, sorry, my back is killing me. Now, I know what you're all thinking. What is this unconventionally attractive guy doing? Meanwhile, my competitors are probably saying to themselves, well, at least I still have a chance of winning. Dr. Pitts is hoping we're still recording, and from what I can tell, we are. I just want to show you what servant leadership can look like. I am sitting the same as all of you. I have stepped away from the podium, and I am no longer in the center of the room. The light is no longer shining on just me. This, my friends, is what servant leadership is at its core. I'm getting up now. Today, I need you to understand something very important, that I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. I quite literally have no more life experience than anyone else in this room, except for the freshmen. You guys don't know anything yet. There's something innately glorified when talking about servant leadership, the people who give up their lives in order to help those in need. But who are those people? How many are willing to make a major sacrifice for the benefit of others? First, I'm going to discuss servant leaders throughout history. Then, I'm going to tell you how you can be a servant leader through small steps in your own community. And finally, tell you about one of the most important leaders in my life. According to the National Society of Leadership and Success, kind of a conceited name, but whatever, servant leadership is a style in which a leader doesn't focus on personal success, but the desire to serve and give to your community. It's about thinking of how to help others and not focus on yourself. How can you improve a friend's life, a family member's life, or maybe an entire region? This sounds for some people to be an easy feat. Of course you look out for others before yourself, but what happens when looking out for your community means making sacrifices you didn't agree to make? The Pew Research Center conducted a survey in which they asked US citizens to describe the traits of the average American, both positive and negative. 68% of Americans claim that we are selfish. That's a high number. That's over half the country. And these are people talking about themselves. What does that say about us and how we treat each other? Now, these numbers can seem discouraging, but what I'm here to talk about is how impactful one person can be, no matter who you are. When researching famous servant leaders, many celebrities came up, and while I would love to tell you about the charitable good that Justin Bieber and Snoop Dogg have done, I decided I should bring up leaders who are a little more close to home. Fellow Kentuckian and elected member of the Fellowship of Southern Writers, Wendell Berry, has been a striving activist representing the rural Appalachia for decades. He fought to keep small businesses and family farms within our state as industries began taking over our farmland. Berry wrote endless essays and poems on this, and even publicly debated the former Secretary of Agriculture at Manchester University. He had the courage to look one of our world leaders in the eye and speak about his own ideas. That's sacrifice, putting your money where your mouth is, so to speak. In one of his most famous works, The Unsettling of America, Culture and Agriculture, he divulges into the problems of big business coming in and taking over our way of life. In 2015, he became the first living writer to be inducted in the Kentucky Writers Hall of Fame. And yes, you heard that right, the first living person to receive that award. Which begs the question, how many dead guys did he beat? Now that I am leaving Alice Luke College, I can say this place has taught me a lot. First, it is never a good idea to email your professor after 10 o'clock at night. You weren't kidding, you guys actually do have lives. Secondly, I'm reminded by how powerful our founder's legacy persists in the minds of the faculty and students every day. Alice Geddes Lloyd gave her life to this college, sacrificing everything to ensure kids from rural Appalachia receive an education. She worked tirelessly to keep this college tuition-free, allowing young minds to prosper in this region, going so far as to hand-type thank you letters after suffering from a stroke. Her spirit guides the decisions of people on this campus every day, just as it did during the recent flood in our region. Even in devastation, I've seen the work that people put in to help one another here. That's saying a lot for a small college in the mountains. Looking throughout history, there have been countless people that have given up their lives for the greater good. Servant leadership is needed all over the world right now. From the LA wildfires that have destroyed more than 11,000 homes, to our very region after a second major flood in 3 years. Many of you sitting here today are victims of this flood. You have seen servant leadership in people and may have exhibited being a leader yourself. Whether it's donating food, helping clean debris, or even one of the many rescue workers who risked their lives to save the victims of this very flood. Whether it's a professor that went the extra mile when you were going through a hard time. A friend who gave you a place to sleep because you had nowhere to go. Or even someone that just talks you out of a bad decision because they know that there's better things for you. If there's anything I want you to take away from today, it's that being a servant leader isn't some innate quality that most people don't have. It's about being kind, looking out for others, and realizing there are bigger things than yourself. Eventually, we grow to understand the world, which means it's up to us to decide how we can deal with its problems. We can either sacrifice or not, fight, or just give up and focus on our own desires. This being my last year at the college made me realize something I didn't want to admit. I'm going through growing pains. I'm about to leave this part of my life and continue to further my education. There are countless things I imagined I'd feel getting this close to graduation, but if I'm being honest, I'm terrified. We don't know what our future will look like, and that's not something to take lightly. After writing this speech, I learned something extremely important to me. I've been living with one of the greatest servant leaders I know. Someone that powered through having pink eye in both eyes so her son could have a birthday party. Someone who gave her home and took care of her best friend during Christmas break after open heart surgery. Someone who worked 3 jobs to keep up her family, all on her own. And someone that endured domestic violence to keep her baby alive. Jennifer Denise Witt Fraley, my mother, dedicated her life not just for her kids, but for everyone around her. Being a servant leader means taking charge and looking out for everyone, not just yourself. My mother, who had to flee the state with me for protection from my father, always found more love to give the world, no matter what she was put through. She never met a person she didn't try to forgive. I always argued she was too kind for her own good, but I learned while writing this that kindness isn't weakness. Selflessness isn't weakness. It's one of the bravest things you can be as a person. In essence, that is servant leadership. Making sacrifices even if it inconveniences you. It means being a good person and making an example of yourself to those who look up to you. Talking to your grandmother for just 1 more minute because you're her whole world. Hanging out with your little brother even if you don't feel like it. And letting your mother know just how thankful you are that she kept going even when the odds were stacked against her. This is where I leave you. These are the essential parts of being a servant leader. A person who makes change happen. There isn't a reason not to be kind, to put others before yourself. And if you struggle, look to those you call leaders. If there's anything I can ask of you, please do not leave here unchanged. Just walking by hundreds of people and being consumed about what to do with just your life. Ralph Emerson once said, "It is one of the most beautiful compensations of life that no man can sincerely try to help another without helping himself. Service, and they will serve you." Thank you.